Quadratic equations solving by factorising. So we want to solve the following quadratics by factorising. If we look at the first example here, it's quite an easy one to factorise because there's no constant term. We can see that we just have a common factor of x, which we can factorise out. And then in the bracket, we'll have 5x plus 7. Now what we have is x multiplied by this bracket being equal to 0. If two things are multiplied together giving 0, either one of them is 0 or the other is 0. So we can say that either x is equal to 0 or 5x plus 7 is equal to 0. So if x is 0, this whole thing is 0. If the bracket is 0, the whole thing is 0. So that gives us x equals 0. And if we solve this one, let's just do that quickly down the bottom here. 5x plus 7 is 0. 5x would be negative 7. So x would be negative 7 over 5. So x is equal to negative 7/5 is the second solution. Now for this second example, what we're looking for is two numbers that multiply together to give us negative 8 and which add together to give us negative 7. Negative 8 and positive 1 would do that. So we can factorise this as x minus 8 and x plus 1 and put that equal to 0. You should have done some of this process in your ordinary maths lessons. Now, either the first bracket is 0 or the second bracket is 0. So either x minus 8 is equal to 0 or x plus 1 is equal to 0. And that gives me that x is equal to 8 or x is equal to negative 1. This one is harder to solve because it's harder to factorise, so follow this carefully. We have 2 times negative 15. We're looking for numbers that multiply to give us negative 30. And then the coefficient of x is 7, so they need to add to give 7. Now because we're multiplying to get negative 30, it means one of the numbers is positive and the other is negative. So 10 and negative 3 would do that. 10 multiplied by negative 3 is negative 30. 10 add negative 3 is 7. And it's always this process. They multiply together to give you the coefficient of x squared times the constant, and they add together to give you the coefficient of x. Now what I'm going to do is use these numbers to split this middle term in two. So I have 2x squared, add 10x, take away 3x, take away 15 is equal to 0. So you can see here the 2x squared and the negative 15 are the same. It's just the plus 7x is now plus 10x minus 3x. And it doesn't matter if you get these two in a different order. Now, put a wiggly line down the middle and then factorise each half. So I can take 2x out of here, and then I'd have x plus 5. And if I take negative 3 out of here, I'll have x plus 5. So the same bracket either side, the x plus 5, and that must be the case. And that tells me that I can factorise as 2x minus 3. You can see the 2x's from here and the negative 3 from there. And then the bracket that I have the same both sides. And now that's factorised. And now we're in the situation where this bracket multiplied by this bracket gives us 0. So 2x minus 3 equals 0, or x plus 5 equals 0. And with a bit of rearranging, you should see this one gives me 2x equals 3, x equals 3 over 2, or x equals negative 5. Whenever you're solving a quadratic, you want everything on one side and have it equal to 0. Then we're going to do this same process. So 6 multiplied by negative 20, we want them to multiply to give us negative 120, and add to give negative 7. So we're looking for things that multiply to give us 120, add to give negative 7. And one of the numbers will be positive and the other one will be negative. And obviously this one is much harder than the previous one just because the numbers are bigger. Now, I had to think about this for a couple of seconds. The factors that I actually want here are 8 times 15. And because when we add we get negative 7, I want negative 15 and positive 8. And those will do the trick. Multiply them, you get negative 120. Add, you get negative 7. And we do the same thing we did over here. So the 6x squared goes down. But the minus 7x is now going to be minus 15x plus 8x. It doesn't matter about the order of those. You'll end up with the same answers in the end. And then we've got the negative 20 equals 0. So you can see here, it's just this negative 7x has been split into negative 15x plus 8x. And then the same thing, wiggle down the middle. And we've got a common factor of 3 that can come out, and also an x. And then I'd have 2x take away 5. And over here, I can take out a common 4, and then I'd have 2x take away 5. And so my first bracket is 3x from here with the plus 4 from there. And then my second bracket is the 2x minus 5. Put that equal to 0. And so either 3x plus 4 is equal to 0, or 2x minus 5 equals 0. And this first one is going to give me negative 4/3. And the second one is going to give me 5 over 2. So, x plus 4 equals 12 over x. Doesn't look quadratic to start with, but if we multiply both sides by x here, in order to get rid of the fraction on this side, so multiply the left by x, and we need a bracket when we do that. It has to be the whole of the left we're multiplying by x. And then 12 over x, and we're multiplying by x there. And then these x's cancel, and we've got rid of the fractions. So we have x squared plus 4x, take away 12, when we bring the 12 over to this side, equals 0. So we're looking for numbers that multiply to give us 1 times negative 12 is negative 12, and add to give us 4. So, if we look at those, 6 and negative 2 should do the trick. 6 multiplied by negative 2 is negative 12. 6 add negative 2 is 4. And we don't need to go through that process where we split the 4 when we just got a monic quadratic. We saw this slightly earlier in this example. We can go straight to brackets here. We can just say it's x plus 6 and x minus 2. You can't do that when there's a number in front of the x squared just here. And so we have that x plus 6 is equal to 0. The first bracket is 0. Or x minus 2 equals 0. The second bracket is 0. And that would give us negative 6 or 2 as our values of x.